Before we get started with the podcast, I want you all to go check out You Grow Girl. That's Grow, Grow, written by a dear friend of mine, Jay Smith. It's for daily affirmations for Black women. It is filled with beautiful, colorful images of Black women and powerful affirmations. You can find it at Amazon at Amazon.com.
We're back! Welcome back to Red Zone in the Lab with Deuce.
Welcome back to Red Zone in the Lab podcast. This is Dion Deuce Blackney, and we're back with some more NFL draft talk. The draft is tomorrow. We had a few guests come on today. We're going to drop this episode tomorrow. It's like a draft preview. We had Big Doug on from the Big Douglas Show podcast. We had him on. We had Mark Bullock on, football analyst Mark Bullock. Hogfarmer Keith also joined us today, along with Mark Tyler. So, and we had a ton. We had a ton of football talk. Thanks to those guys, it was a pleasure. Interviewing them, just getting some of their knowledge. It was an honor for me. I'm really excited to be able to talk to those guys. They've been in the game a long time. They've been following the Commanders a long time. But yeah, we go over everything. We go over the draft. We go over the state of the Commanders. We go over stadiums, Dan Snyder, what we're looking to do in the draft, the off season, everything. So I thank you again for listening to Red Zone in the Lab podcast. Again, this is Dion Deuce Blackney.
I'm Christian Miles, native Washingtonian and real estate agent servicing the Washington metropolitan area. I started my career as an investor and later transitioned to the residential side. I really wanted to leave the investor side because I wanted to connect with people. Building relationships is important to me. I understand the buying and selling process can be challenging. I get it. I've been there. I'm a mom, wife, friend, and neighbor. I absolutely love helping families and connecting with people. Going through the home buying and selling process is stressful enough. When working with me, I make it fun. As a realtor, I think it's important to be able to connect with you. Every detail is important, no matter how small. Let me take care of the heavy lifting while you focus on the joys of finding a new home. Something I live by: people may not remember what you said, but they will always remember how you made them feel. With me, it's an experience.
Welcome back to Red Zone in the Lab with Deuce. It's draft time. Who you got?
Welcome back to Red Zone in the Lab podcast. This is Dion Deuce Black, and we'll continue our draft talk. This is draft week. The draft is tomorrow, and our guest today is Mark Tyler from Hogs Haven. Thank you so much for joining. It was, when I reached out, I was like, well, I guess I'll just try and see what happens. And then, you reply back. So it's an honor to have you on. How you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me on. Always excited to talk some Commanders draft. I can't even get used to saying that, Commanders draft. Say Washington from now on. But yeah, it's a fun time. I mean, we've been boiling down, 2 or 3 months. Everyone's been on Twitter arguing about everything, having spaces, and it's been crazy. So I'm looking forward to getting tomorrow evening kicked off and getting this behind us after the weekend so we can start doing some more damage to the roster.
Yeah. Will you be there tomorrow?
I wish. No, unfortunately, not going to be. But I thought about it, and we're actually going out to Vegas in 2.5 weeks. So I'm 2.5 weeks off.
Yeah, hopefully it's not as expensive as it is this weekend.
Oh God,
I can imagine.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So let's just do a brief background on your history with the Washington franchise. How far does it go back?
Yeah, so it goes back. I think I became a fan when I was like 7 years old. My family, we lived down in the DMV area. My dad worked for the government down there, so we were down in that area, and that was back when the Redskins were starting to win some games, and we had seen some Super Bowls. I didn't know what was going on in the first Super Bowl, but as we got into the latter ones, especially in the 90s, things started to click for me. But grew up a fan, so we moved back to Pennsylvania when I was going into 7th and 8th grade. But even though I was surrounded by Steelers and Eagles fans, I still maintained loyalty, so it was tough. I can tell you that's why I have this deep found hatred for the Eagles fan base, but I was always surrounded by my buddies, and they were, like I said, they were either Steelers or Eagles guys. So it was tough.
Yeah, man. It's, and growing up in DC, I've been in DC all my life. It's a lot of Cowboy fans, right? That I grew up with, and most of them, like me, started out as Washington franchise players or whatever. And we just was so sorry. They're like, I'm jumping ship. I'm going to this nice, pretty star with this blue and white, and I'm sticking it. I'm sticking it out, sticking with them. But I grew up here. I lived on 19th and Gale Street Northeast when I was younger. And that was right like 3 blocks from RFK. Yeah. And when they would win games, they would drive down a one-way street, blowing the horns and making all this noise. And it was wonderful. And my mom, she somehow got us a job one fall. I think I was maybe 11 years old, and I was the soda guy in the stadium, RFK. So
nice.
Yeah, that was a fun experience, man. Back there, the sodas was, if I can remember, I want to say $2.25, something like that. But
times have changed.
They're way more expensive now. As a fan, and as a you follow the team. What do you think the state of the franchise is right now, on and off the field?
So I definitely see a culture shift. I mean, I've been very critical of what we've done this offseason. I should more say what we haven't done this offseason. I definitely see a culture shift. And, I know Ron's trying to do the right thing with this team, bringing in the right guys that fit what they want to do, both short-term and long-term. My one big critique of this offseason, obviously, we addressed the most important position with Wentz. I was a big Wentz fan. I championed him even last year when I heard that we were very interested and inquired about him when he was being traded away from the Eagles. So I was happy to see that come in. But I also know that we have many holes on this team, and we didn't really do a lot to fill those holes this offseason. So I watched guys like Sheriff walk away. I watched us get rid of a guy like Flowers, who, in my opinion, played excellent. And wasn't a very, very big cap hit for us. Landon made some sense because he was taking up a significant portion of that cap, and for a non-premium position, it just didn't make a lot of sense to pay someone that type of money to pay money backer. So I get that, but my thing is that we're going into the draft with, 2 top 100 picks, and yet we still have what I consider 4 major holes on this team. So, love to be able to see those get filled. And I've been a little critical of the staff for not making some extra money or not pulling some moves that I thought we could make to make this team better. So we went into the draft, we would have the luxury of picking something that wasn't exactly a need. Maybe we could fill a value versus need VPA type of approach. But I think we're kind of hamstrung now that we have to fill some needs. And I think that has to come in the first 2 picks.
What is your take on letting go, letting Tim Settle walk, letting Matt Ioannidis walk, and from what it looks like from the reports, you may to say smoke turns to fire eventually. Not looking to extend Daron Payne. I'm puzzled. I don't understand this process. What is your take on that?
Yeah, that's it's very interesting. I mean, Settle was inexpensive, 5th round
Yep.
pick that we got a lot of good production out of. Same with Matty I. I mean, but he has battled some injuries. We had the torn pec the one year, and then the injuries have halted his play to what he's capable of doing. But I was like, listen, if you guys want to keep one of these defensive tackles, Settle's the guy that I would go out and try to resign. I would play the franchise tag game with Payne if we needed to. Keep him on the 5th-year option. It's not killing us. And then if you want to keep him another year, you can tag him. But I was really, really set on keeping Timmy Settle here because he was young. He entered the league at 20 years old, and he's still growing in his position. And he was a great guy. He can play the 1 technique. He can play the 3 technique. So very, very valuable to our defense at not an astronomical price tag. So I was a little bit upset about that.
Yeah, I didn't understand it, especially from what he signed with Buffalo. I was really surprised. I mean, even if you extend, let's say even if we thought they was going to extend Deron Payne, that still didn't seem like that would prevent them from doing that with the contract that he got for Buffalo. And I know Settle, from his side, he wanted to play more because, he wanted his next contract to be even bigger.
Sure.
So I don't know, what role that played, but injuries happen. I mean, he's like the 3 rotation guy. I mean, we went, what they call it, 50 base. I mean, we did that the majority of the year. So, what do you think when it comes to the defensive line? How early do we need to try and, show up that defensive line with depth? Or do you think, we can kind of fill in with veterans or something after the draft?
Well, here's the big name that everyone keeps popping out, and I think I tweeted about it today, but you talk about Star Latuay, who is a former Panther guy that is a free agent right now. He's on the open market. Listen, you probably give him a 1 or 2 year deal, and he's still got a little bit left in the tank. I think he's 29 years old, so he can still come in here and play some defensive tackle. Same type of guy. You can rotate him at the 1 and the 3. He has the ability to shoot a gap and be a gap penetrator, but he can also be a run stuffer when you need him to. So he would make a lot of sense. I surmised today that does Ron have a secret handshake in place with Starr and Trey Turner, because you got to think Trey Turner's got to be on the list somewhere, especially when we're looking at letting Sheriff go, wanting to keep that 3rd-round comp pick that we could possibly get back in that formula. And then you think about who's out there, and Turner makes a lot of sense knowing that offense, 5-time Pro Bowler. He had a little bit of injury history over the last couple of years, and everyone says he's healthy now. So I'm surprised he's not signed, but, wonder if Ron has that secret handshake with those 2 guys.
And then those guys you kind of look at, kind of sort of what it seems like this regime is leaning towards, assigning a lot of those guys like after the draft. Even when you think about Landon Collins, and I know the reports was, he was willing to take the 1st pay cut, but not the 2nd one. I mean, He's still out there unsigned. And he played that what they call in Buffalo nickel role well towards the end of the year. And if you can bring him in on a contract that fits what he's going to be doing, then do you think that Kyle Hamilton is not? It can be kind of taken out of the equation, or you think that's a must if he's there at 11?
So I've been torn on Hamilton. I mean, Hamilton is my number 1 rated overall safety, but I don't really consider him a safety. I consider him a gadget guy, hybrid guy, money backer. He can play strong safety, but we already have a guy locked in the strong safety, which is Curl. So I think Curl has entrenched himself in that spot, does a really good job. People who talk about Hamilton playing free safety, purely situational. I could see him as a little bit of too high, but dropping him down as a robber, let him play in underneath coverage. But his most successful game tape at Notre Dame came when he was in underneath coverage, intermediate coverage, or trying to erase a tight end from the slot. And if you're asking him to play single high, you're asking for major trouble. Everyone goes back to that Florida State game where they threw that little, I still call it wasn't an NFL pass, but you saw him go from one side of the hash to the sideline and pick that ball off. But you also have tape out there that Tulsa tape didn't look good. Cincinnati tape didn't look good. And he was manned up on a lot of guys, especially in the red zone. I mean, he let a lot of guys just kind of like flow through his area and wasn't playing good hip trail. So I have my doubts that he can be a free safety. To me, if Hamilton is on the board, I'm sitting there listening to every phone call that comes in, looking to trade back for that team that wants to go up there and grab that money backer. Because in all honesty, I think we have a guy on the roster already that can play that position.
Yeah, who is that guy?
So I talked about Derek Forrest the other day.
Yeah, gotcha.
Everybody,
right?
everybody was like a little bit taken aback by it. I think we forgot the name, but if you look at his combine, I mean, he has some amazing combine numbers to go along with his 5'7", 206-pound frame. I mean, listen, there's nothing that says that kid can't play at 210 pounds playing money backer, but his short shuttle and three cone, I mean, his three cone was, I think, in the 6.81 range. He had a great vertical. He had a great bench press. I mean, he's an athletic specimen. And as long as we can get his head on right, I think he can play that money backer role. He reminds me a lot of Collins, but he's just a better athlete overall.
Yeah, and he's faster.
And I tell you what, he brings the wood when he hits. Watching his college tape, that boy can hit. So I would love to see him get an opportunity to play there. But you also have Hudson. I mean, Hudson could probably do a little bit of that. You know, he was a former safety at the University of Michigan too. So he's got that backing of a safety / hybrid linebacker already in his DNA. So maybe he would be another guy that could kind of fill that role. My biggest thing is I do not want to see us go non-premium defense again. And defense in general, this will be the 6th year in a row if we go defense this year in the first round, that we've gone that direction. And to me, it's the definition of insanity, where you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results.
Yeah, I think I'm more so looking towards. I'm thinking about Ron, right? His pressers and his quotes about, you know, getting Carson Wentz, because, you know, they extended Scott Turner. I think Ron has 3 years. Scott was extended; he has 3 years, and Carson is eligible for 3 years. And I think that's kind of need to be explained, because some people think like this is last year's contract. No, this is just when we can get out, but it's actually like 2 more years, right? That's correct, right? So it's like this kind of sort of 3 years looking at it, and that's what I think Ron's play here. How do you feel about that? Do you think that's, you know, Ron's play? You know, he went to the owner, say, "Oh, hey, I want to extend Scott Turner," and now it is him, Scott Turner, and Carson Wentz. Do you think that's what he's going into the next couple seasons with?
I hope so. I mean, I'm a big Scott Turner fan, and we did a lot of film breakdown of him, and I was excited when he got his extension. I think he's a young mind in the NFL. He's obviously got the pedigree and the bloodlines of his father. So, but he has a hybrid offense. I mean, he loves to do, you know, those deep posts, those deep corners with the under route coming underneath, and he loves to roll his quarterback out, get those concepts going in there. So I think he does a lot of things, and I don't think the fan base has seen everything he's capable of doing, just because we haven't had the quarterback play to give him that carte blanche to say, "Hey, listen, I can do whatever I can." Heineke couldn't press the ball on the field more than 40 yards. And when he was on the run, he was incredibly inaccurate. So it took a lot of the things that Turner likes to do in that offense away just by having Heineke on the field last year. Now you have Wentz, who actually plays very good outside the pocket, one of the highest rated quarterbacks last year when he was moving outside the pocket. But he's a big, strong kid that can, you know, flick his wrist and throw that ball 65 yards down the field. So you get those deep threats like Terry, you get even, you know, Yami running out there.
Brown.
It's not going to take a lot, you know, to get the ball into some of those playmakers' hands.
And I don't praise Terry being, you know, the number one contested catcher like the national media does, because there's a reason why he was number one, right? Because all his throws were underthrown. You know, that's why. You know, and I always cringe at my Cowboy counterparts, you know, about Trayvon Diggs. I say, if y'all watch the All 22, you know, he's constantly getting separated from this guy, constantly. But the ball is always late, underthrown, overthrown. You know, and Terry got that scare when he went up to try to get the ball when he, you know, what was that, a concussion?
Yeah, he got a concussion. He missed
yeah, and you know, when Heineke had went down, Kyle Allen came in. Was that to De'Ami Brown, the bomb he threw?
No, that was to Carter.
That was to DeAndre Carter. I was like, what did it? You know, it's like, wow.
You couldn't have handed that ball better to him. You and I couldn't have walked down the field and handed that ball into his breadbasket any better. I mean, it was an unfortunate drop, but that was a perfectly placed ball. And we kind of saw what those deep threats could give us if we had a quarterback that could lead them.
And that's what I think Carson Wentz will bring. But we're going to get more into Carson Wentz towards the end. So when it's looking like the wide receiver position in 11, of course, we is connected to Olave. It was Jameson Williams, but now it's real heavy on London. Which one of those guys fits Scott Turner and also can complement Terry McLaurin? If all three of them was there at 11, which one would best complement both of those guys?
I mean, such a tough question to answer because this draft at receiver, it's loaded, but it has so many different body types and skill types that you can basically pair a team with what they're looking for in this draft and still not have a big drop off. You know, my number one guy is still Wilson. I think he offers a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I just thought he would be gone by then.
Well, I mean, listen, you're looking at 8 with Atlanta being the first spot that he could go, but you never know. They need defensive line help too. So, I mean, you never know what they'll do. And then obviously the Jets are looking to get a receiver. So if they want a small, shifty, fast guy who's great with the ball in their hands, he may be definitely gone. I think Williams is going to sneak up. I think he could be the first.
I think so. I think James Williams is going to be the first one. That the video he posted on high knees, I think that was enough.
That boy can fly.
Yeah.
So if he's healthy and they do their med checks on him, which I'm sure most of the teams have done, and they expect him back by the time training camp opens, or, you know, maybe even if you have to pup him for a little bit, but if you're going to get, 15 games out of him, it's definitely worth it. Whatever, the kid's a superstar in the making. So I think for us, London makes some sense. He's a big bodied receiver. Mike Williams, Mike Evans, they've been two of the big comps for him. I've watched a lot of film on him. I don't think he struggles to separate as much as people are making it out to be.
Yeah.
I just think he doesn't need to separate as much as people are saying because he's just winning stuff at that level. But there's where your critics come in. If he's not showing the separation at the college level, is he going to be able to do it at the NFL? But when you cover a 6'5", 220-pound man with a 5'11" cornerback, when this kid has a basketball background, I mean, you know what you're going to do with that guy. You're going to box him out.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to go up and over top of him. You're going to one-hand snag those rebounds like you're snagging a football. So I love him, but the guy I really, really love, if we trade back, is Burks. I think Treylon Burks is, oh, man. So you're talking about a Debo type of guy, but bigger. He ran a 4.55, which was a little bit disappointing. People thought he was going to be in the high 4.4s, maybe even mid 4.4s. But you look at I never see the kid get caught from behind. Even against Alabama, he made Alabama defenders look like fools when he took that ball to the house. So he can play in the slot. He played a lot of his snaps in the slot last year, but he can play outside. You can throw bubble screens, black screens, jailbreak screens to him. I think he's got the ability the rack is amazing. So if we move back, he would be my target.
Yeah, and I just think about for Wentz, like Wentz, he excels on the big guys, the jump balls. He like to throwing it up. And when I think about Wentz and I think about his receivers, like I don't even know who his receivers were last year. They were so like unknown. But even in Philly, it's like his number one receiver is always a tight end. Like he's never had a star wide receiver. So if I would love to trade back, that's what I would like. When I try to do a mock draft, I would like to trade back. But what is your pick for the Commanders at 11 if there is no possible trade back? Who do you think is going to fall to them?
I think we're going to see one of those three receivers fall to us between Williams, Wilson, and London. I think London right now realistically makes the most sense for us of a guy who could possibly be there at 11 and a guy that we're rumored to be in love with at that position and pick. But I would take any of those receivers, and I would feel very confident taking one of those receivers. If two of them are there, I probably do gravitate a little bit more toward the bigger bodied receiver, just because that's something that we really don't have in the starting lineup. If you're looking at a 3-wide receiver set with Curtis in the slot, Terry at the X or Z, and depending on who we got, and then if you add London to that mix, just so many different variations you can use with that. So I would probably gravitate toward the bigger body receiver because I think it's something that we need, that red zone presence. And without Logan Thomas, who knows if he's going to be back 100% or if he's going to be back to start the season. Yeah, we really don't have a big guy on offense.
Because that's why, just talking about Logan, I believe tight end is a need. I don't think it's there are a lot of tight ends, I believe, from maybe 3 to 5 that starter quality tight ends. Have you looked at anyone that you think that'll be there maybe in 4 because we don't have a 5th round pick though. Someone that we think we can kind of target in the later or in the middle rounds.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. Tight end is an absolute need for this team. I mean, if you even talk about Logan coming back, he's 31, I believe, and coming off of a major knee surgery. You never know how someone's going to respond to that. But we got to start looking for the future, regardless. People love Bates, but Bates is a throwback tight end, and I respect the hell out of a throwback tight end. But he's an old H-back type of inline blocker in the mold of a Donnie Warren. So I love it, but he's not going to be the guy that's going to strike fear into the heart of a defense. I think there are some decent tight end options in this draft. And if we wanted to go as high as 47 and snag a kid like Trey McBride, he probably would be. That's probably where he's going to fall, right around that middle second round area. But I don't know if we want to take a pick that high on a tight end. It could be a little bit of a luxury pick. But I look at like a 4th round option. I would love to see Greg Dulcich slide to that 4th round. I don't think he will. I think he's going to be a 3rd rounder all day. Isaiah Likely, he's another guy from Coastal Carolina that he can really run. He's a big body. He's athletic.
That's the big guy, right?
Yeah, Likely is. I mean, not super big. He's like a 6'4". I want to say he's like 6'4", 245. He's more of like a move tight end. Okay. Maybe you're thinking of Woods, the kid from Virginia.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, super freak athlete. He's like 6'6", 6'7".
Yeah.
Like I want to say he's 262, and he's like a 4'5" guy. So, but he's raw as hell. He can move, and he's a big target. So he would be interesting. I think he'll be there in the later rounds for us to use. And another guy is Charlie Kohler. I mean, Kohler, I thought he was going to come out last year from Iowa State. He had a phenomenal year, and he decided to go back. And big body, move tight end, not as physical as you would think from the size of him. I want to say Kohler is like 6'6", 250, 255. But you can really flex him out, and he can run, and he can be a mismatch nightmare. He's not going to break a ton of tackles. He's not like a Kyle Pitts where he's going to be running away from people, but he can be a move tight end.
He's a wide receiver. I don't care what no one says.
Yeah. Oh,
Kyle Pitts. I don't care what no one says. He's a wide receiver.
He's a jumbo wide receiver.
So what's more important to you, linebacker or tight end?
So there's two different schools of thought with that. So Cole Holcomb, we saw him play Mike last year when he assumed the green dot. I thought he did a good job in some games. I remember the Dallas game where he carried Ezekiel on a wheel route out of the backfield, had him matched up with perfect hip trail technique, turned the head last minute, arm went up. I mean, he was picture perfect. You could actually put that in a coach's clinic. So he's had his moments. He's a super athlete. He wants to play Mike. He's asked to play Mike. He's got the size. The only problem is he's not a thumper taking on blocks, so you gotta have him as a gap shooter. But listen, there's a lot of guys in the league right now, Deion Bush. There's a lot of guys who aren't, and they excel at that position. So I would like to see Holcomb give him the chance to wear the green dot, put Jamin at will. That's where he belongs. And if we want to run some Sam, we did it less than 15% of the time last year. But if you want to run a 3 linebacker set with a Sam, dude, Shaka Tony.
Yeah.
Ooh, Shaka. I mean, I followed that kid his entire career at Penn State. He was a hand in the dirt defensive edge playing at 6'2", 240, sometimes even lower than that. He's not going to play in the NFL. He can't set the edge at that size. So use him to his strengths. Use him like a Bruce Irvin, when Bruce was in Seattle.
Yeah.
He reminds me of that type of player because he ran a 4.51 at the combine. And if you remember in the Senior Bowl that year, he matched up on some of the tight ends. And one of the guys he locked down was John Bates.
John Bates.
So he has the ability to play situational Sam. And if we're 15% of the time, listen, you can walk him up and put him as that 5th hybrid defender and a 4-3 underfront. He can wreak some havoc coming off the edge too. You can kick Montez Sweat inside, kick Chase down, put him as their flank, and there's your 5-man front.
Situational, right? And,
absolutely
situational, like you were saying, less than 15%. And towards the end of the year, we was mostly 2 backers with Collins. I mean, we ran the 5 linemen the majority of the time, and that was because of the bad pick. That was because of Jamin Davis, right? That's the reason why we had to go to. He just wasn't cut out. And, I think, like you said, being on weak side linebacker, he could use his speed more. You don't have to worry about, the tight ends putting his hands on him. He can kind of move a little more freely. And when it comes to the defense and the cornerbacks, how confident are you in the cornerbacks? Let's say, well, Sauce is not going to fall. I don't know why people keep thinking he's going to fall. He's not going to fall. But maybe Stingley. And what's the other guy? The guy that, that's the guy
from Washington.
That Logan Paulson is real high on. What do you think about the cornerbacks if one of those guys fall?
So I have, like you said, I don't think Sauce is going to go anywhere. He's going to be top 10 all day long. I think there's teams that are out there that they have Stingley rated higher on their board than Sauce, believe it or not. And Houston may be one of those teams. So I think he's going to go that high? No, but I would not be surprised if he goes off the board before 10 as well. But here's my problem with Stingley. Played phenomenal as a true freshman. I said, I don't think I've ever seen a true freshman come in there and make an impact like that at a big school like LSU.
Yeah.
But you look at the rest of his time, he was inconsistent or injured. And it scares the living crap out of me to take a guy with the injury history and the inconsistencies and then give him the Jack Del Rio and expect Jack Del Rio to put him in positions to make plays. Having said that, we signed William Jackson III last year. He's getting guaranteed money for the next 2 years. We have Kendall, and Kendall played well when he got moved outside, and we have St. Juice behind those guys. So we do have size, youth, length, and athleticism at corner. I don't think it's a need pick for us. Next year, maybe it's a whole different story, but I roll with those guys. And I maybe look to pluck a slot corner somewhere later on in this draft, or if we move back. I think McDuffie's a phenomenal talent, but I just am not willing. I wouldn't be willing to take him at number 11 when we have guys that can play, who have guaranteed money and are proven in this league.
I agree. And he's not someone that's, lights out. Like, like Sauce, for instance. If Sauce miraculously fall, and maybe that'd be a little hard.
That'd be too hard to turn down. Hard to turn down.
Yeah, you have someone like him. What about how much trust do you have in Gibson?
So that's a big question. I mean, I made a couple different observations last year that it looked like he was picking up steam and starting to see the hole a little bit better. He was patient, but when he saw the hole, he was cutting. As a rookie and early on last year, it didn't look like he was finding the holes very well. And I think that was part of the reason being that he wasn't as patient as he should have been. He wasn't trusting his block and wasn't letting his block set up. My problem with Gibson, obviously, is we're going to talk about fumbles. So we got to address the elephant in the room there. And he's putting the ball on the ground. If you're putting the ball on the ground in the NFL, you're not going to play. He's also been battling injury. So last year we had the shin injury. He was taking a beating, but he also saw 250 carries for the first time in his career. I think if we use him as a weapon, that's where he's best. You can use him in that McCaffrey. You can use him in that that type of role where he's coming out of the backfield, causing mismatches for a linebacker who's trying to match up on him, like a Kamara. And if we come out of this draft with a running back somewhere after the fourth round or later, I would be ecstatic. I mean, Cook is a phenomenal option out of Georgia. Love him.
I don't think he's going to be there that late.
He may not be either, but he's one of those fringe guys where you see him sitting on the third, fourth round type of area. And if that kid fell to the fourth round and we're sitting there picking, I mean, I'm running to the podium to select that guy because I think he would be a huge asset to the team. The other guy is the Florida kid. God, why is his name slipping my mind? The kid whose helmet came off on that play where he kept running in the end zone. He's a bruiser. I love the kid. I can't believe I can't remember his name right now, so my apologies. But he's another guy that I think could be available in the fourth or fifth round. It would be a really nice complimentary back who's a sledgehammer.
Yeah, well, I think we need a big back because just think, the toll on the 17-game season, it's an extra one game. That's a lot, and then, like you say, the injury history with Gibson and, and then wanting to be more pound, he's coming from wide receiver. You're expecting him to run in between the tackles, just having someone else that can kind of take a little more of that brute force. So Carson Wentz, what was your initial reaction when the trade came through?
So I jumped on Moving the Chains the one evening and was talking to Pat and Jim about quarterbacks, and we were talking Commanders. So they were giving me some scenarios, and I threw a couple out at them. And the one I threw out at Pat, I said, Pat, what do you think about Carson? I said, first of all, do you think he's going to be available via a trade, or do you think he'll be released? And do you think he would fit what the Commanders are looking for? So Pat was very, very honest. He paused, he pondered it. He goes, He goes, first of all, to answer your first question, I do not think that he will be released. I think that you will see a trade for Carson Wentz. Second of all, he goes, I don't really like him as a fit for you guys. And I said, well, why? So tell me more about this. So he's like, I've never been interviewed like this before. I'm supposed to be doing the interview. But we had a good time chatting about him, and then, kind of left the conversation off as I think he would be a good fit. I would be willing to spend a third round pick and a possible mid-round pick that could go up as high as a second. And then the next day, I actually tweeted that exact same thing out. That was February 10th or something like that. So a month later, he was on board with that exact same pick, our compensation package. So I figured that's kind of what we would have to give up to get him. I think some people in the national media blew it out of proportion, saying that there weren't other teams.
Oh my gosh.
But I can tell you that I am almost 99.9% positive that there was another team with an offer that was very similar on the board. I can't tell you this for certainty, but I think it was Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that'll be a good fit, right? He kind of looks like with just retired in a sense. Yeah, and I think he has a bad route, like we were talking about earlier. He's never had a number one receiver. I think that Jacksonville game, it really hurt. The owner and national media. I think that really took a impact, that Jacksonville game. I mean, the flick on the goal line. I mean, I think that just that
left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, especially Colts fans.
Yeah. So, I mean, when it comes to Carson Wentz, I'm on board. I think he's here at least, for the next 2 years. I don't think this is no trial. I think this is who they're going with.
I agree.
And I think, even if they say, he might give you 10 good games and the other 7 might just be like, what in the world? But I'll take that. I will take that. I will take Terry McLaurin not having to do these crazy twists all in the air. I would take all of that. I'm all on board with Carson Wentz. So that's good. That's good to know. There's not too many people out here, that's good. That's good with that trade. And I think it's more national media influenced.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. But
look at what Carson did. I mean, when he was playing his best ball with Indianapolis last year, I mean, there was talks about him possibly being on the cusp of a Pro Bowl. He didn't turn the ball over, only 7 interceptions last year. And you're right. Like, his next best receiver next to Michael Pittman was Zach Pascal. And I want to say Pascal had 300 receiving yards. I mean, T.Y. Hilton didn't do anything he was battling injury, which, I want to be fair. He's been battling injury
the last 3 years, though.
Yeah.
He's been out.
He has. But you're right. He didn't really have, besides Pittman, he didn't have anything in the receiver core. So it was tough.
Yeah. But I think what would make this draft so much better, and I'm not one that thinks I believe the Terry deal is going to get done. But if you want to make a bad pick, you better be ready to extend Terry right after. That's the only thing. That's the only thing that's gonna, But thank you so much for joining us today, Mark.
My pleasure, Dean.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
Hopefully, you can come back, to kind of have some more conversations. So much more. I would like to, talk to you about, pick your brain about, especially about the Commanders. Of course, coming up, we're gonna have a conversation about predictions. I personally think it's too early. We don't even know what's gonna happen in the draft yet. But thank you so much for coming on. You want to plug Hogs Nation, SB Nation, in your Twitter handle?
Yeah. So come over. We always have great conversations over at Hogs Haven. So it's www.hogshaven.com, and we're part of the big SB Nation blog. And so we interact with our fans. We interact with fans from other fan bases as well. But we always have, intriguing debate and, welcome anyone to come over there and chat with us. So definitely check us out if you get a chance.
Appreciate that. Appreciate you for coming on. That's Red Zone. Yes, sir. That's Red Zone and Lab podcast. Thank you for listening. One beat, one sound, one heart, one love.
There's a lot of bad stigma about shopping for a used car. Well, come visit us at iCargo Motors. We'll take care of you. We'll ensure that your experience is not only seamless and efficient, but also satisfying. Because at iCargo Motors, we believe that the best form of currency is integrity.
It's draft time. Who you got?
Welcome back to Red Zone in the Lab podcast. This is Dion Deuce Blackney, and we are still talking about the draft. This is draft week, and our guest right now is Hogfarmer Keith in the flesh. This is crazy to me. You could catch him on the Bleeding Burgundy podcast. And how can you catch Keith in the stadium? Tell us how we can catch you in the stadium, Keith.
Oh, I'm not hard to miss wearing that Hogfarmer gear, that's for sure. So you just got to look for the goofy tall guy. You find the goofy tall guy in bibs, and that'll be me.
1 second. I accidentally got too excited and signed in on my phone. Okay, there we go. Yes. Hogfarmer Keith, part of the Hogs that you see on the sideline with the overalls and all of the Commander fanatics, and this is him in the flesh, Hogfarmer Keith. What has been your what's the history with you and the Washington franchise?
Oh man, I grew up with it. My dad was a huge fan. So, from a little kid to growing up, I kind of just, took it on. I mean, my dad never pressured me. It was just one of those things where, dad being in the military, he wasn't around a lot, so it was the one thing that I knew as a kid that I wanted to bond with him. So, as you grow up, like all of us, we learn the game, we pick our team, and I'd like to say I'm happy that I picked this team, but I'm a damn dad, man. You could have liked another team that was better, but no, I'm just kidding. No, it's really how that boils down is just, like everyone else, most of the time we grew up through family, and, I got lucky. I mean, my dad's not from the DMV area either. He kind of became a fan being a John Riggins guy.
Okay.
And once John Riggins joined the team, it was like one of his favorite players. And then it just evolved. I mean, I'll never forget being a little kid. And I talked about this a lot. I'll never forget being a little kid living in Germany, and we were watching the 87 Super Bowl. And I didn't know who Doug Williams was that day until that day of the game. And right. My dad screaming out, Doug Williams, and Doug Williams ended up becoming, one of his favorite players as well. So, as a kid, you kind of just, you soak it all in. And then as I was getting older, you tend to do your research, like, who is this Doug Williams guy, and, and, his story alone, believe it or not, his story alone, as I got older, made me really just want to continue to be a fan, and learn the game of football. And even at my age now, I'm still learning the game. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like an expert, but most definitely. Yeah, so it turned into that. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to. I've had a lot of experiences last season where I've got to meet a lot of cool people. Doug Williams is not one of them. So that's going to be my focus this year. Yeah. And, after losing my dad, I think I just, I'd like to have that closure where I want to meet his hero. Yeah. My dad never said, Doug Williams is my hero, but the way he talked about Doug, it was almost like they were, almost best friends and they knew each other. So,
and he seems like he's not hard to get to, he's not one of those guys.
And, I almost started feeling like, has he avoided me? Because there were multiple times last season where I had just left an area and he shows up.
And he pops up.
And then I see all these pictures on Twitter, people taking pictures with Doug, and I'm like, are you kidding me? But I guess it's just the luck of the draw. So hopefully I'll, see him this season. And, like I said, it'll be an honor to, shake that man's hand, because he really truly is the reason why I'm a fan, to be honest. It started with him, researching him and researching a story, and here we are today.
Yeah. What was, other than some moments with your dad, what was like your most, I want to say, important moment with the franchise, rather someone that you met, a significant moment? What was that moment for you?
Yeah, I hate to always bring it back to my dad, but this is now in the time frame of, when my dad was super sick with pancreatic cancer, and he was bedridden, and I was living in Florida at the time, but I lived an hour away, so I would come home and visit frequently. And one of them was on a Sunday against the Jags. It was back when Mark Brunell was our quarterback. Of course, we had Santana Moss as our number one receiver.
Oh, man.
And I'll never forget that game. It was probably the last game that my dad and I were, that we watched together, even though he kind of didn't make it. He didn't make it in the beginning, but he saw the end. And it was probably one of our last moments, together, where he was just, nothing else but my dad, and I was his son. And just, watching Santana Moss catch that touchdown, to win that game. It was back in 2006 when that happened. I couldn't tell you exactly stats or that, but just remembering that moment, was pretty cool. I think last year's experience of meeting some of these players, also kind of, it changed the way that what's the word I'm looking for? I meeting some of these players, I think, last season, especially at camp, it changed the way of how I do business on Twitter. We're very critical, as fans, and it's okay. We're, this is what we do. We're critical to players, but I kind of, and I've never been one to trash players or, things like that, or like mention them on Twitter and trash them. But, we all give our expert analysis as fans, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And after meeting these guys, man, you kind of just realize, these guys are just human beings, man, with a dope job, and they're young, and they don't deserve all this like crazy criticism that, is given to them. And, if you just treat them like human beings, and not everything even has to be sports related, you approach one of these guys, and if you know enough about them, like you ask them about something in their college career, they tend to like heavily respect that and want to have conversations with you. So, those are the experiences, that I've had. Last season was the most experiences that I've ever had, in connection with this team. So it's been pretty cool.
Yeah. You talk about Brunel and Santana Moss. I'm going to give mine, like that game against the Cowboys on the 2 bombs and he smoked Roy. I went to work the next day and I was just hanging up all of these Washington Post cover pages of all the Cowboy fans that was around. Is that your game, or what's your game that you remember the most?
I'd have to tell you that would be the game.
Yeah,
and the reason is because when something traumatic happens in the world, we all kind of remember where we were at. Like if we talk about 9/11, we all remember where we were at. That was the game where I remember where I was at. I was in my garage. I had a man cave and was watching that game, and it was just unbelievable how that panned out. It's to the point where I've got a Santana Moss where he's catching the second touchdown on my wall signed, so I definitely, cool. I hate to bite off you. I'd like to
I love it. Yeah.
but that one was it. And then, also I know a lot of people may agree, may not agree with the 2012 season in itself.
Oh man, that was,
it's really the last thing that we have to hold on to. I know that we were in the playoffs with Kirk Cousins, but there was just something about 2012 that was electric. And I think it all started when we drafted RG3.
Yeah.
We all know how that story plays out, unfortunately, but I was all in, and
that was like that year, I'm an 80s baby. So, the glory years, I was, young.
Right.
But I remember growing up, I lived on 19th and Gale Street, that was like 2 blocks from RFK. So when they would win, they would drive down my street. That was the one way right on 19th Street, blowing the horns. And when I was about 11 years old, somehow my mother had got us, a job, and I was doing the Pepsis inside RFK. So those are my memories, with RFK, selling the Pepsi. So that was a heck of an experience. But like you say, that year, 2012, that was like my first year. Like, man, the national media, our names was everywhere. Griffin name more. Everybody was like everywhere. We was like the staple of the league. And that's something that, to get into our next question, like what did you have to say to like the up and coming, football fans in this area about trying to keep that? And I know all the things that's going on is kind of hard, but just on the football side of things, like what kind of advice would you give those kids that, hey, this is a storied franchise?
Yeah, man, that's a great question, and again, it's kind of why again that I've changed the way that I do business on Twitter, because I kind of have learned you could either be part of the problem or you could want to help with solutions, right?
Mm-hmm.
We understand what's going on with our football team. We understand the off the field definitely takes over the on the field process, and I've gotten to the point where the off the field negativity has just been too much for me, and so it's getting to the point where because of the experiences that I've had last season and the people that I've got to meet, it's got me to change my mindset. Instead of always saying, I mean, we've been terrible for 30 plus years, it's how can we get better? And the idea of doing podcasts and talking to different people that, are in the, not necessarily you, but, I've done podcasts with younger generations, and the glory days always comes up. So just being able to have the opportunity to talk about it from my point of view, and let people know that this is a, this is a great franchise. It really was. And we're trying to get there. It's tough to tell people to be patient, but we don't really have any other choice.
Right.
And I would say, looking at this team now from the past 10 years, I think we're actually seeing growth. And I think that that's what the younger fan base needs to see. So, like this season, we need to step it up. We need to be better than 7 wins, and if we can at least be better than 7 wins, then I do feel that we're trending upwards. And really it's just fans communicating with fans. Like I said, I've learned through this whole process that, you can meet some really cool people.
Yeah.
And when you're sharing your different stories, like you telling me about RFK and you being the soda guy, like it's just like, I've never done that, but I think that's really cool, and just being able to share those stories, and keep the fan base together as we try to get through what we call, I guess, these rough times. But it's been rough, so it's hard. It's hard to tell people, but I always say at the end of the day, this is a game, this is a game. Eventually we're going to get back to, where we need to be. But more importantly, I think it's the friendships that you establish, between the fans. If you had talked to me 4 or 5 years ago, I didn't have any, I didn't know anybody. I was alone. I'm married to an Eagles fan, and I know, and I live in the Philadelphia area, I'm in New Jersey, but I'm in Eagles country. So, I was by myself, and, so just hopping on Twitter and just giving people a chance and, not using it as a goof around platform, and just, like I said, really trying to establish the fan connection. As corny as that may sound, it's worked for me, and I've got to meet a lot of people, especially in that younger fan base. And that is the fan base that, I'd like to tell stories to, because we've seen it, like you, I'm pretty much an 80s baby too. I mean, I was born in 79. So, I don't remember the 83 Super Bowl. I barely remember the 87. Yeah. I mean, you talk to me about 91 and that's a different story, so I think that that's just what it is just a, constant reminder, that just not to forget about the Redskins history. Now we're talking Commanders history, and we're in a complete unique situation where, we have a lot more power as fans than we've ever had before. And we also have a front office who looks like they really want to, and they try, and they have not been successful in all areas, but they are re-engaging with fans again, and they're reconnecting. I can tell you this, if you went to camp and you walked by Jason Wright and you stopped him, he'd have a conversation with you. Not because he feels that he has to, he'd do it because that's just the dude that he is. And that's kind of what I respected. And that's what reconnected me from this whole Redskins to Commanders thing, because of course, 2 years ago, if you asked me about the name and logo, I'm upset, because I'm upset for different reasons, but at the end of the day, like when you really think about it, it's football. It's football. The team is still in the same area. And even though I'm not from the area, what do I love the most? Did I love Redskins? Did I love the logo? Sure. But I love the football more, but I love the action of football better. Right. So, it was just time to move on. And I think that's maybe move on is not the right word, but it was just time to focus differently, and that's what I've done.
Yeah. And I agree. And I believe, we are who we are because of where we come from. Right. So, that's part of the history, and that's part of you and your dad's history. Like
Yeah.
You and your dad don't have a Washington football team history, right?
Right.
You don't have a Commanders history. You don't have that. So by you just saying, well, just forget that, I'm gonna move on. It's not really fair. It's not fair to you and your connection.
Yep. And that's the way that I looked at it too. I looked at it like, okay, my dad and I were Redskins fans. I could never say that my dad and I were Commanders fans. But, like I said, I could sit here and be angry about it, and be a part of the problem, or I could help be a part of the resolution. And after I changed my mindset and attitude, doors started opening for me. And I don't know how, to be honest with you, but doors started opening and I started seeing different perspectives. And really the truth of learning here more was just because I'm, almost 44 years old, right? It's okay to listen to the younger fan base. For a while I was like, man, everybody's rolling over on this name process. Like what's going on? Well, when you're talking to, 20 something year olds, they haven't seen the glory days. They haven't seen what we saw. So I kind of put myself in their shoes and understood that maybe that name and logo isn't as close to them as it would, because they haven't shared great memories. I mean, let's be honest. So when I flipped the script on the mindset, and I'm like, okay, here's an opportunity for the young fan base now to create those memories with, their family, their kids, start a whole new tradition, and generation. And then I look at it, with my kids. Someone mentioned it to me, and it's amazing if you can just listen to certain people on Twitter that you respect, that they can come with great knowledge. And they said, hey, those Redskins were your memories with your dad. Now you've got a 6-year-old fan, create Commanders memories with him. And I'm like, you know what? You couldn't have come at a better time.
Yep. And that makes and that makes sense. It's like, history doesn't stop, right? Today is history. Yesterday is history. It doesn't stop. And we can remember our history, and we can build on that to create, a new history. And that's what I think, talking with some of my younger cousins about, what they wasn't able to experience. And, you have to look at it, you have to look at it in a positive sense, because we can just keep dumping on. I mean, we get that enough from the national media, right?
Right.
So as a fan base, we kind of have to, pull together and just talk positive, some positive things. There are positive things going on, even though the negative things may still outweigh it, but you can drive yourself crazy trying to solve the negative things. And one day it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And if you're not this person that's like, I'm not going to watch it at all because this and that, then you have to find your median, right? You have to find your ground where you can be able to, have fun and be positive. Just like what you was kind of explaining about the whole, the Twitter space is being able to connect with the younger crowd, and, even the older crowd, to be that bridge that can kind of bring both, fan bases together. Because without both fan bases, it's going to get worse.
Right, 100%. And that's kind of why I'm so focused right now on, even though, listen, I don't work for the team. I'm just a guy on a couch like everyone else, right? But if there's opportunities to where I can, give some input, I really think, at first I was like, game day experience. I'm like, all right, I mean, it was whatever. I mean, we were a team without an identity. We didn't have a song. There was nothing that we could really do. The team kind of just put things in place, during game day to kind of just make it work and get through the day is the way I feel about it. But now I'm focused on the game day experience, because I really feel like, this is going to sound weird and strange, but, I don't watch wrestling now, but, I watched all these wrestling documentaries, and, I've been talking about it a lot lately because that was my childhood as well too. Right. And man, the one thing that you can say about wrestling, we all know it's fake. Right?
Exactly.
We all know it's fake, but what makes it great is the production.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now the wrestlers determine, I know we're so far off base here, but the wrestlers determine how the match goes. That's all written, right? But that, again, that's part of the production. That's between them. Well, that you compare that to the football team, it's the same thing. We as fans have no control over how the team performs on the field. Right. But we do have control on the production. And I mean, you look at like WrestleMania and all these things, the way that the production of it all, it's exciting. The fans are excited. It's because you've created an exciting product. And I think that the team right now, and I hope it does change, down the road, but I do hope that they look into this. And I wouldn't say necessarily put on a WrestleMania type production show. That could probably be pretty pricey, but doing things now that we have an identity to try to have things make sense and reconnect the fans. And like, I want to go to a stadium, man. Like I've never been to RFK. I don't know what that was like.
Oh man. Yeah.
I don't know how loud the fans got. I don't know any of that. So like when I hear your story or other people's stories about RFK, like it really is just like, we can have that again, but it's really up to us, you know, and yet we're so focused that like, oh, well, you know, the left side of the stadium is always, you know, has all away. Who cares? Who cares? We as fans at home control the game day experience, you know, and if the team could put some effort and some money into do different things, they can really create a spectacle and really launch this new brand and get the younger fan base that likes this kind of stuff, you know, more involved. And I feel like if you've got a happy fan base that are attending these games, you're going to have more and more attend. And I know that this is an issue because Jason Wright was calling people last summer, right? Setting up conference calls, and he was calling people last summer. And his first question was, how can we get people in the seats?
Yep.
My exact words to him is, I don't know, Jason, maybe make it exciting. Once we have our identity and that team name is announced, we allow the fans to help create new traditions. And I know that that's going to come within time, right? That's all natural. Right. That's all going to come natural. We don't want to force that. But what you can do is increase the excitement for your game day experience. And they've got the money to do it. They just
that's not a problem. Yeah.
That's not a problem.
And my wife and I, we try to go like every fall. I mean, COVID kind of knocked us back a little bit, but every fall, you know, try to go to an away game, you know, to a city we haven't been to, making it a whole weekend. And I've been to a few stadiums, but the Titans, have you ever been to the Tennessee Titans?
Never have, but I've heard.
Oh man, like they stand up the whole game, literally. Yep. They stand up the whole game. And the production from the jumbotrons, the commercials they run, the chants. I mean, it was so, you know, it was you felt like a Titans fan, like you wanted to be a Titans fan. And that's the type of experience that I'm thinking about what you're kind of describing when you kind of describe the production.
Yep. 100%. I mean, I seen it in New Orleans. You know, New Orleans.
Oh man,
they have their chants, like especially after they score or right if they score, you know, get a first down, and it's just they've been doing it for so many years. But what it's doing is more importantly, it's drawing the crowd to the game. I feel like when we're at our games, we're off in La La Land at times. You know, we're all looking around at everything else and not really paying attention to the game. But that's because they're not really directing the focus. They're not, you know. Tell us fans what to do. You know, we have a dance team, former cheerleaders, but we have a dance team and we have a hype squad. A lot of people don't even know what a hype squad is. Yeah. Well, they're the people that walk around the tailgates handing out beads and stuff, but you're not utilizing the hype squad on the field. Now that we have an identity, you can utilize, you know, this hype squad, you know, to go out on the field and really throw up signs, you know, and I know that, you know, there's probably a fear that it won't work because you got to get fans to buy into it. But man, the only way you do it is if you try. And even if you fail 3, 4, 5 times, all it takes is for your team to be in a winning situation and you throw up a sign, bro, and we're all over it. We're all over it. I mean, you have a couple from the dance squad over there on the left side of the stadium or the away side holding up a sign that says Hail, and then on the other side says Nation, and you keep directing the crowd. That's the problem. No direction at these games. And I'm not knocking the team, but again, I can either be part of the problem and complain about it, or I can try to be a part of the solution. And if they're going to make their emails and everything accessible, I'm going to send them, because like at the end of the day, man, if I'm going to spend all this money going to a game, I don't want just the W's, but man, like when you experience a win, even at FedEx, you know, when you experience a win, it's electric, man. It's awesome. Like it makes it worth the 3-hour drive for me, you know, just because you get to experience and see all the happiness with the other fans. And again, like that's what changed me, was like, man, I don't have to troll these people on Twitter anymore. I can actually get to know these people, you know, and I can, and I've gotten to, man, I've met so many great people, and so, like I said, that's why I've been, looking more into the game day experience. I know I've talked so much.
No, it's fine. This is exactly why I wanted to have you on. Yeah. And you talk about, New Orleans. I was there, when we was up, 3 touchdowns, and Christian Thompson broke his leg, and they came back, and that, I mean, it was so capturing the crowd, the experience. It was just like it was a heck of an experience, and I haven't really felt that experience from FedEx Field, and yeah, and when you think about RFK, it was like it was a herd of elephants, and the stadium would actually shake, yeah, right, and it was awesome. Yeah. So when we talking about the the game day experiences, the state of the franchise, we would switch a little bit to to what do you think is needed, or what can you expect? Well, let's start here. Do you think what's more probable, a new owner or a new stadium, or both? Because it seems like he's getting it from everywhere. It's like everyone, it seems to be coming after him. What yeah.
Yeah. I think we're going to get a new stadium before we even get a new owner. I call him, I think we've all seen it. Teflon Dan. Yeah. He's not going anywhere. I don't see it, I just don't see it happening. I mean, the latest allegation, not to get into it, but the whole, possibly embezzling fans, that might gain some, continue to gain some strength. And if they investigate that, there could be something there, but I feel like there's nothing there. I feel like everyone is grasping or trying to grab at straws here. So I foresee him still continuing to be the owner. To be honest with you, I know a lot of people will disagree with me, but he hasn't been around. Tanya has been in charge, and I'll be honest, like, I don't have a problem with Tanya being in charge. Do I agree with some of her decisions that she's made on certain things like uniforms? No, but at the end of the day, it's not my money or team, right? It's not my decision, it's theirs. I'm not I don't know. I don't want to get too deep, but to answer your question, I think we're going to get a stadium before we will, but there's a flip side to that too. Maybe no one wants us to have a stadium if Dan's still the owner, type deal. That's the big thing. So that's kind of tough. And if you gave me the option, and if you said, what would you prefer? I mean, I do want I would like to have a new stadium, but honestly, with that, it's going to be too expensive for even middle-class people to have season tickets. Yep. Once a new stadium gets built, then you have PSLs. I mean, they do this in, at Lincoln Financial in Philly. You've got to pay a certain amount of money, in between $5,000 and $8,000, to own the license. And that's not even counting you're paying for the actual season tickets. And so that's the same exact thing that will happen in a new stadium. So I know a lot of people are like, I hate FedEx Field. Listen, first of all, traveling from New Jersey, I don't have a problem getting there. It's easy, right? And I mean, do I wish the stadium looked better? Sure, I do. But after, 20 something years of that stadium being there, and really you're just doing the basic upkeep, what do you expect? And then I kind of look at it like, look, I'm just here to watch football. But then it's tough because I start talking about the game day experience. Well, when you talk about game day experience,
cracked up parking lot and
correct in the weeds growing up in the cracks. Like, see, that's funny that you mentioned that, because no one says anything, but those are the details that, we'll pay attention to, because it's like, look, if we're paying our money, we want state of the art, but I don't think people realize once you get that new stadium, it's going to be worse. Like, there's not going to be a lot of people that can afford, to pay those licensing fees for their seats. It's going to be difficult. Like, I won't be able to be a season ticket holder then, I can tell you that.
Yeah. And you just like, you can't see it, right? Is they barely can fill up. Well, they can't even, fill up this stadium, but just like Ron's, one of his favorite quotes, winning cures all. And that, I believe you come out 12, 13 wins, and you keep it consistent, just like how he was mentioning. People come to that stadium, regardless of how it looked. I mean,
the power of social media will change everything. And again, if we go to games and the teams are winning, right? It does matter what our record is, but let's say we're on a winning streak. We're on the good side of the record. People see fans being excited at the game. Ain't nobody going to care about, the details of FedEx Field. They're going to care about the situation.
Yeah.
Or if we're able to display, a better game day experience, that's what's going to put people in the seats. I mean, I can't help but to just keep continuing to go back to the game day experience because I do know that it could be so much better and they have the money to do it. And I'm just not sure why. Maybe they didn't invest because they knew that we were changing from Washington football team. And so maybe things will be different this year. I know they're adding, they brought 60 members of the band back. So
that's good.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's things happening. I know that they're now that it looks like we've stuck with Hell to the Commanders. Like that's the thing now.
Yeah.
I have a feeling they're just going to switch up words to the song now. They're going to keep the song, switch up words. That's why the band's coming back. And so, sure, but we can also do more. There's so much we can do. And like I said, if you can spread the excitement from people, it's going to change a lot of things. And then, like you said, you get to 13 wins, 14, or 13 wins, and we're actually a playoff team. Now we're talking, so winning will ultimately give you a better game day experience. That's for sure. But in the meantime, we're not winning. So we got to figure something else out. Too.
Yeah. Winning, I think, when, like we say, winning, and maybe because it's so much more uncertainty about relocating that maybe they'll say, okay, maybe we can renew up, push it down a couple more years, and let's just put some money into here right now.
I think that's if Dan Snyder's still the owner, I think that's what's going to end up happening. I think they're going to have trouble going to other areas. So then Dan's going to have no choice but to upgrade his stadium.
Yeah.
Or not his, but upgrade the stadium.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. And hopefully Hogan will, do something with that area where the old Sears was at. Because there's nothing over there but, grass and dirt. But yes, I don't want to hold you too much longer, but I'm glad and I'm excited you was able to join us today, and hopefully you can, you'll come back and maybe actually get into some on field.
Bro, anytime you want me on, I'd love to come on. I love doing this kind of stuff, so I'll support you 100% in anything you do for sure.
I appreciate that. I really do. That's Hogfarmer Keith. You want to plug your podcast and your social media handle?
I love you for that, but no, this is about you, not about me.
Oh, appreciate that, Hogfarmer Keith.
No, yes, thank you. I don't need to plug any of that.
Thank you so much, man. That's Hogfarmer Keith again. This is Red Zone in the Lab podcast. One beat, one hop, one sound, one love.
Thank you for listening to Red Zone in the Lab podcast. Please follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Red Zone in the Lab. And you can download our podcast at Spotify, iTunes, and Podbean. And please visit our website at redzoneinthelab.com. Thank you.
We're back. Welcome back to Red Zone in the Lab with Deuce.